Hi, my friends and family. My name is Trey Smith, and this is my Odyssey and YouTube channel, Trey's Myths and Tunes. And today, my discussion or my dissertation is called Liberating from Governed Mind Control and Learning Freedom and Equality. Looking at the devil, grinning at the gun. Fingers start shaking. I begin to run. We begin to wrestle. I was on the top. I got to thank you for letting me be myself. Oh, fear, cause I got to take on my role to serve humanity. Freedom now. I gotta thank you for letting me be myself again. Liberating from governed mind control and learning freedom and equality. Well, the idea for this comes from I was watching Mark Passio, and I first heard David James Rodriguez mention this. The word government in Latin means, or Gubern Mente means mind control. So ever since the Brotherhood of the Snake, the reptilian Dracos, and the Anunnaki, and the demiurge, ancient Saturn moon matrix, reincarnation death cult, has been operating to keep us stuck, to keep us emotionally retarded, to keep us, this is why I always talk about this, to keep us in spiritual kindergarten, to keep us 3D slaves. And of course, the forced cell phones, the coerced shots, and the space fence we see today here were an attempt of total planetary takeover by the dark side, including with gag orders, an attempted planetary takeover, with gag orders for all those in the scientism death cult, or mainstream science, so to speak. Climate engineers are not allowed to speak about it. Well, they'll speak out of both sides of their mouth about it, as I said. And so I was watching this lovely woman, Akura's YouTube channel. She was crying last week and being tortured, and she in fact her and her boyfriend she got turned on to the same material as me, with Lisa Renee and Ashiana Dean, and but yet she's a powerful psychic, beautiful woman. And she says that they took her and her boyfriend to the fourth dimension, and it was hell. And I think I might have got a tear watching this video, and it was really sad because she could see what it's like in the reincarnation cycle. She was taken to the fourth dimension so that she could see what happens to the majority of these souls in these human forms as they are used for food and energy for these dark beings for as long as they can. So this is one of the main reasons why I make this material. She said that the fourth dimension is hell. So if you reference my video about the fourth dimension, about 5 or 6 videos back, this means she's saying that the process for the 3D slaves, for example, 3D humanoid slaves, whether they're cyborg or not, their soul doesn't evolve. It's a hell. Okay, the reincarnation death trap, and this is why, of course, one of the chief reasons why war and conquest. This goes back all the way to the beginning of time through war, conquest, kingships. Then a long time ago, they smashed asteroids into the planet with this alien evil black goo to infest the vibration of that into the planet. So we have the narcissist around that same time, millions of years ago. We have the insertion through the Luciferian religion of the narcissistic predator entities, and then narcissistic personality disorder ultimately is what it turned into. And so that the dark sides, or Satan and Lucifer's archetypal insertion. Okay, so we have the war. Then we have the warlords. Soon after this, my friend Nick said that these guys would come up and knock on your door and say, "Well, this enemy's coming to." In the medieval days, this enemy's coming to fight, and you're gonna have to fight in the army to fight off this enemy that's coming to plunder and kill us off and take our stuff. And if you said you didn't want to fight, they'd demand a payment. So it's a very interesting theory that's the origin of rent, that it was these corrupt warlords. Okay, so the term warlord over time became landlord, right? Warlord. So your landlord is actually your warlord. Okay, I have to reside in this tent on the other side of the equation to actually be able to even say that. According to my friend, this sounds like a really plausible theory that that's the beginning of rent. Or it could have just been they started doing it where they could get away with it in the sexy towns and locations where the most resources were. Okay, so equality under natural law. I was watching Mark Passio today, and he's talking about this. So he says under natural law, everyone has the same rights. Okay, and the reason why is because they're your birthrights. Again, if you're born in the continental landmass called United States of America, you're actually born with the freedom of speech, freedom to do what I'm doing, even freedom of peace, your articles to be at peace. So let me know what you think. So consent cannot be given or taken away by government, according to Mark Passio. I agree. That's a made-up idea. He says that they made this idea up over time. So Jimmy Dore's on Dr. Drew was I was watching. He was speaking about basically, they're shaming reality in 2020. Those who had the courage, like he said, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, the CNN MD, who made this article about how cool it was that Colorado legalized it 10 years ago. He said on Joe Rogan, you should get your shot and your booster and to have an immunity, and how absurd was it that this guy was the same. He didn't say this. I'm saying how absurd was it that this guy was the same guy that was supporting the legalization of cannabis, and now he's saying you need the shot to get your immunity. And so this shows you how the so-called secret government, the Illuminati, CNN, the Dark Lords have decided to be all right. Well, they even one of the first documentaries to tell the truth about that I've ever saw on YouTube that's since been pulled a long time ago. It's supposedly made by this woman who's from one of the 300 richest families in the world, but a rebel called the Ring of Fire. She said that somebody in the Rothschilds actually paid Osley to do the acid test. Okay, so beside with Kent State was the number one way, but beside Kent State, they decided to put an end to the war protest movement, right? So, which it probably worked. These students only protest the tuition and rent hike. So warlords leads to war and rent. The connection, right? The origin. So 2020. In my opinion, was actually the end of the hierarchy of the New World Order of Gates and Schwab and all these goons for the dark side, these millionaire and mind control slaves for the dark. The elites are basically, I consider the elites basically slaves for the dark ones. So, but this is the end of their control because they screwed it up in too many different ways. I can't say in details or I'll get another strike, but they screwed it up in too many ways, okay? So that's why I think it's the end, There's too many people like me, Dr. Drew, Jimmy Dore, and Nyla Nguyen, and all in between, okay? So Satan's attempt to use fear, bribery, guilt, threats, and job and school loss to inject everyone. I mean, that's what they did, you know. There is no real government beside the portions of it that are respectful, to keep the peace and freedom, okay? The parts that protect, you know, even the cops, if they're protecting your right to peace or freedom, you know, the freedom to not be robbed, or, for example, you know, or through using surveillance and threats through the government to maintain peace, you know, well, that goes back to my video about guns. I won't say I agree or disagree, but it tends to be okay if the government leaves you alone and only does things such as establish laws to protect your freedoms, like re-legalizing cannabis, for example. We have all been under MK Ultra or mind control programming. What is the intent? Well, planetary takeover, man, and permanent reincarnation for slavery to feed the energy vampires that think they're our parents. Okay? We're their children and their slaves and their hookers and their bloody energy drink, Bloody Marys. Attempts to convince people that they're made in Satan's image, right? So you're made in Satan's image. You grew up with this media. I say, you know, well, you have to repent and reject that idea, or, you know, maybe this is the end. For example, this really pains me to even say, but I think I mentioned this story in a previous video. This person just had the transition. I was about to leave town, and they wanted to give me money for food, and I accepted it, and they gave me a hug, and I could feel the stitches from they had their breasts taken off. They're a really nice person, a really beautiful soul, really good-natured person. And I shared some food with them the other night. And now they got a mustache. They transitioned, you know, and they're a really good-natured person. I've even seen them right over here in the same neighborhood. They're that good-natured. So I say this because it really exemplifies what happens when a region like, say, the coast of California, where there's a lot of people, well, this is where they mastered their mind control. But through controlling the whole, say, region of San Francisco, Santa Cruz, Los Angeles, into this believing that this sex change, this ideology is okay. You know, it was one thing to fix my bike the other day with a transvestite wearing a mask and almost basically touching me and blowing nanobots on me a little bit, but I was really glad they're helping me fix my chain. But sharing food with this person a few days ago was just really touching to me, because it just lets me know, you know, it's like it literally rehumanized the whole thing, because this person is like one of those people you feel like you're friends with immediately because they're such a good-natured person, you know. And my heart, you know, I say prayers for them, because but again, I have to mention this because this lets you this person allows one to see how, or allowed me to see how far down the rabbit hole this idea goes, that if you believe what you're told, how much harm you might do yourself, and why the Christ and the moral, natural, common law is the real, and what the government and the media says is so tragic, and so the opposite of respectful, even to the point where a person that is this loving would do that. You know, attempts to overstanding the extreme depth of the mind control. Take a step back. Go to the forest or the beach, meditate, disengage with the strongly obedient. Remember, only you can liberate yourself, which is what gnosis means. And the CIA, MJ-12 was created through the Nazis and the aliens. And they're against truth and the CNN. And they don't want this video to be seen. So if you enjoyed it, click subscribe to the notification bell and I'll send you more. I got another page here. God bless you, folks.